This is the A to Z podcast. Expert insights on leadership, business, real estate, investing, and growth.
Welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm very much excited to invite Captain Abiy Makonnen Beri. He is the CEO of multiple companies. He has 35 years of experience in aviation. He's also a certified John Maxwell leadership coach. We're going to talk about his amazing story from Cockpit to C-suite. Whether you are a leader, entrepreneur, or change maker, this is the conversation you want to be part on. And I want to invite Captain Abiy, and we have this conversation. Captain, I really appreciate you. I know how much busy you are, but you have made time to come here and share your story, the insight that you have to our audience. So thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dr. AZ, as I call you, for the warm welcome, and of course for creating this platform. Very uplifting, for voices across the generation that you're doing, and for the industry that we are in leadership. It's truly an honor for me to be here. As you've introduced me, my name is Captain Abiy Makonnen Beri, and my journey began in the skies, I can say, because I was born into an aviation family. My father was among the pioneers of Ethiopian Airlines. And my brother followed that same footstep, and you can imagine I followed that next footstep. So for me, aviation was never just a career. It was a calling. It was something that I'm still using to look at my future vision or what I'm doing today and what I have accomplished. It is also a legacy and a bridge between what I'm trying to do between two continents as we further our discussion. Today, I serve as different hats, and one of them is I play the role of CEO in two companies. I'm also a chief commercial officer with a company that's only Black-owned aviation company, JAG-AvDyne Aeroservices, here in the Washington, D.C. Metroplex. And the only thing I can say is with my story, it's not just about aircrafts. It will be also about leadership. That's something that excites me, and I guess that has created the union between myself and Dr. AZ. So he calls this from the cockpit to the boardroom. I'll say I've learned a lot from those principles. That means from the cockpit to the boardroom, and we'll be sharing those principles on how preparing is very important. Precision is very important. Making decisions and staying calm under pressure. All these elevate and they describe what leadership is all about. And also, as he said, we'll talk a little bit about my John Maxwell experience. And I look forward to sharing this insight and my journey with you. And I hopefully will inspire, and for some of you, enhance your vision. But for me, I'm working on my legacy. So whether it's in aviation or whether it's in any other field, I hope I'll stay will be a splendid one. Thanks.
Wonderful introduction. Definitely. I have been working with leaders across different industries. I also have regular conversation with leadership development experts like yourself. And whenever you and I speak, we take like hours and we share so many insights, principles of leadership. And this is really for the audience. Otherwise, I know your story, I know your principles, but I want people to know what I know about you. And you already mentioned about your legacy. I want you to take us back to how it all started. Ethiopian Airlines is one of the most successful companies in the world and the number one airlines in Africa. And your dad, who inspired you and your brother, he played a significant role in the early days of Ethiopian Airlines. And I want you to go back and tell us what it looked like to grow up in that family which has a airlines DNA. to watch your father playing significant roles in the early days and how that inspired you. Give us whatever stories that you want to share about your dad and the early days of Ethiopian Airlines.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me. I mean, people really don't want to talk about their source or their beginning. My beginning was a wonderful beginning. I grew up in a beautiful family. I say my father should have been, I guess, created in that side of the world we call Africa, because the guy was out of this world. His thinking, how he puts things together, how he tells you how everything is. But as I've said, my life started in aviation because I thought my father's uniform was the only thing that he wore. Every time I saw him, he was in that uniform, ready to go out or coming back. So aviation was what was discussed in the house. All his friends and family and some of my cousins. I mean, aviation is something that's a language in where I come from. And the path that my father took from starting in the Air Force. I mean, he enlisted when he was 16, telling them he was 18 years old. He was that passionate to be in aviation. And as I reflect growing up with him and with aviation, one thing that, as an Air Force guy, he was a soldier, don't forget, and then he became in the airline. And one thing what he has instilled, the values in us, is the discipline, the excellence to go all the way to the top. And the global perspective, believe it or not, Dr. Z, before I came to America, I knew what America was. I knew what I should expect. So for us, growing up, especially with my father, a lot of people, I hear stories. I can't tell you any sad stories. My growing up was a perfect growing up, or I could say upbringing. I went to a private school. My dad was a hardworking man that gave us a very good middle class life. And my dad, out of the things that he has done, that stories that he's told us. By the way, he wrote a book, and I'm right now in the middle of having it translated in English so people will read about it. It was one of the first archives for Ethiopia about aviation. It's called Aviation in Ethiopia. And I'll have the English version for people to read it, but it's already out for the last 20 something years. But you see how we as Ethiopians, where we are in the world today is because of what that generation did, and how they understood aviation and took it to where it is today. As you've said, Ethiopian Airlines is one of the best airlines in the world. And my father played an integral role in there. He's the 5th senior captain of Ethiopian Airlines. There's only about 4 of them above him. And has also played in the growth of Ethiopian Airlines. 41 years in the aviation world is not a small amount of dedication. But now my brother overtook him. My brother has been in aviation for 45 years, and he's still going strong, Captain Samuel. And aviation, as I've told you, has brought a lot of values in our lives from the stories that we've heard. One story I can tell you is my dad is the one that took Emperor Haile Selassie into Jamaica. He flew him into Jamaica. First, it was by an all-white crew that they took a jet out there, and they found out that that jet couldn't land in Jamaica. So another group was called, and my dad was in that group. And April 21st, 1966, with a DC-6, flying all those hours, and all Ethiopian crew landed in Jamaica with the emperor. And that's one of the stories I can share with you from the many stories that my father shared.
An amazing story to have this background, this root for you to come from that family that laid significant contributions to where Ethiopian Airlines is today. I want also people to know your passion, because you were very successful in aviation, but you decided, you know what, I want to have legacy in leadership. And you joined John Maxwell Leadership Certificate Program to become a leadership coach. Tell us what prompted you to choose that path? What was the why? What was the cause, the reason you made that shift to become a certified leadership coach?
Well, you're taking me back again to 1994. That's a long drive, Doc. But for me, I went into aviation, what they call in every cycle and in every career that you go to, you might go into the boom or you might go into the doom. There's two ways that you're going to do it. For example, I can give you during the internet boom, I remember everybody was getting a job out of college. And all of a sudden, the internet boom went down, and it was a different cycle. Same thing. When I went into aviation, it was the time when deregulation has happened. Companies like Pan Am, Easter, Braniff, TWA, and all these companies were going belly up. And all these senior pilots from there, they were coming and they were competing against the position that we're trying to get. I'll tell you, a pilot's life now, I could say it has become better. It used to be a poor man's life. You did it for passion. You didn't do it for career. Every pilot knows that. Every pilot knows that. You do aviation for passion. It didn't even have money. Now it has gone better and better because of demand, because a lot of people run away not to do these, or they say, hey, why would I spend all this money and not get the return? So in that time, I remember, I'll never forget, it was 1 o'clock in the evening, flying from Houston to Dallas. I asked my question. I asked myself, it's 1 in the morning. I said, what am I doing in here? Why am I being this person that is going to do this over and over and over again? Why can't I do something else? Or why can't I own my own airplane? Or why can't I have my own, company? Why should I be hired by someone? And that was the independence call for me. And I left aviation, went into entrepreneurship. I had networks that I have developed. I went with one guy for 10 years and ended up working for him that taught me everything about entrepreneurship, money, and how it's made and all that. And with that, as I was in those companies, working with different Fortune 500 companies, I became a trainer. I think that is natural. I don't know. You can't tell me that because I never went to school and did it, but I was naturally, I guess, gifted, and I could influence people. I inspire people, everything and finally, after I was this corporate trainer, I said to myself, well, what can I do to get this thing better to the next level? And a good friend of mine said, hey, it's 2016. They said, let's join John Maxwell. I said, what is John Maxwell? And then I started reading and researching about it. And guess what? I mean, it's the best decision I've ever made in my life is to join John Maxwell. Not only in leadership, not in my career, it taught me about myself, about who I am. It changed me from inside out. So by being part of John Maxwell, I ascended all the way to become in the circle of the director level and share some beautiful knowledges and be mentored by some of the best out there. And I just sponged all that and started doing it myself. I started holding my own classes of leadership, and I've done so many of them. And then I said, let me take it to my own country. And I started giving these different sessions pro bono, no money asked. And Corona came and changed everything. And after Corona, I will do my best to spread what I know. But as you've said, I've met you, and we have so many different visions and plans to do this. But John Maxwell is the pivotal, I can say, the 180 turn for me to really take this to where you can see me right now, say what I need to say.
Yeah, I read almost all of his books, I would say. And John Maxwell his teachings, his principles, they're not only relevant to leadership in the workplace, they are also relevant, like you said, for your personal growth. Because at the end of the day, I'm sure you and I will agree that you cannot lead others unless you lead yourself, and you cannot lead yourself unless you know yourself and you grow yourself. And that's why his teachings, principles are cross borders. They are timeless, and I'm glad that you join his certificate program and go to the level where you've been working with the executive team within the John Maxwell team. Let's connect that with your background, which is aviation. And we've been talking about, and I love the metaphors, the examples that you give, how the principles, the mindset a pilot has also transferable to any leader in any industry. Can you tell us the parallel between the cockpit and boardroom, and how executives could be able to translate some of the most important mindset and competencies of pilots into the workplace?
That's a fantastic question, Doc. And how it assimilates itself and what you can take, especially if you have something that is transferable from one knowledge to another. It's something that will help you. I mean, excel. For me, for example, I heard one admiral of a navy on a, I guess it's, if I remember, a college, graduation procession that he was speaking. He said, if you all can do one thing, first of all, when you wake up, the first thing what you should do is make your own bed. And I took that. I took that all the way. And trust me, to this day, I've heard this thing maybe 15 something years ago. First thing that I do is I make my bed. Trust me. So when you take these things that you've learned and you take them to the next level, one of the things that aviation teaches you is discipline. Trust me, you are flying. And if you see, there's so many few people that are out there that could fly, or else everybody would fly. Flying is, you're going in a territory that God didn't even make it for you. Because as a human, you're supposed to walk on earth, not fly. So we are in foreign territory with the birds, and we are in their territory. So we have to abide by their rules. We have to abide by the rule that says, hey, if you don't do it this way, and I'll tell you, there's one thing I will never forget it from one of my instructors that said, hey, you treat this airplane right or else she will kill you. Treat her very well. And that's what you can get by taking what I have learned. The number one thing I've told you is discipline. Discipline is that you can imagine you are in a flight ready to go. Let's say you're in Florida right now to come see me here in DC. You're sitting there and they have asked you to go board the aircraft, and you are sitting in your seat and you see these two guys rushing into the cockpit, taking their jackets off, and you say, what the hell is going on? They tell you, these are the pilots that will fly you. You will be so in anxiety and so antsy. Why? Because usually you're used to, when you walk into the aircraft, you look to your left, you'll see these two guys will smile back at you and say, don't worry, we got you because we've been prepared. So as a pilot, you get there 2 hours, an hour and a half early to make sure that you are prepared. You hear about the aircraft, you hear about the weather, you hear about the load, how many passengers, what is my alternative, anything happens, what can I do to save these people that I have been given as responsibility. And I can give you a very simple example that a good, my professor from aviation law passed. He asked a student, if you took off at night and the weather was bad and you took off and you had 300 passengers with crew and you died, how many people died? And he thought, is that a trick question, Professor? 300 people died. He looked at him and said, look, these 300 people at least have 20 families. You killed 6,000 people. You have killed people. There are not just one. So when you're in aviation, the discipline that you have, and from that discipline, the awareness. I mean, I know about one awareness I can tell you recently here in DC, where a helicopter ran into another aircraft and the aircraft ended up in the Potomac River. That aircraft was coming to our hangar to get fixed that night. Okay. And how did it happen? From the, I guess, investigation that we've heard, it was situational awareness. The helicopter didn't know that that aircraft was in that area. So that situational awareness, it gives you that same thing when you are in leadership. What are you aware? How people, after they have intentional purposes to do what they want to do, the next thing is, how did you get that intentional purpose? What made you aware? Is it the kind of life you have? Is it the career that you're stuck in? I always say, when you're stuck in your career, do something, because you'll go extinct if you don't do something. Because I always say, stagnation is the manifestation of extinction. So what do you have to do? And with that, I'll tell you, we go out there and we preach about, look, how about preaching to people? What kind of decisions do you make when you're under pressure? And that goes back again to emotional intelligence. How do you teach people on how to control their emotions? Because everything that you do in life is associated to emotion. People make decisions. One thing that makes us different from all these animals that we live with is the kind of decision that we make, which is proactive rather than the way they make reactive. So, like you said, this assimilation between cockpit and leadership, for me, it's major. And the last one that I will leave you with is teamwork. If you're in a cockpit, you better be working on a teamwork. I've been an instructor on crew resource management for years. And I taught people, especially at one time for 3 years, I taught military Navy guys coming out of the Navy and going into the civilian world, because these fighter pilots, they all fly their own airplane, afterburner. I can do whatever I want. I can flip this air. When you come to the civilian world, you can't do that. You can't be flipping airplanes, like what's that guy's name? Denzel Washington in his movie. That doesn't happen in aircrafts, brother. You do that to an aircraft, that aircraft will not. Yes, you might be doing that and survive, but you're going to do a lot of damage. Why I mentioned that for you is that this decisions that you make, this immediate decisions that you work with your emotion. We have something that's called, memory items that have to come immediately, especially you're taking off, for example, and the engine is gone. You don't know what has happened for the first 15 seconds. You're trying to figure out, and then do your memory item. This, what it helps you is, as you go into leadership, is that what kind of a reaction do you do when somebody comes at you? Are you the kind of guy that has empathy and you listen, not just hear, you listen attentively, not prepare to talk back, but listen to understand. See, all these that you see, if you've taken it from aviation, because while we are up in that sky and we're communicating with air traffic controller and they tell you turn left, you don't tell them turn right. That could kill you. Why? Because you can collide with another aircraft. So repeating back what the other person has told you, that requires a major listening. With that, you develop as you go into leadership. Oh, I better listen to this guy so he could understand me. What am I saying to him? Or, what am I responding to this person? So that correlation is huge, and we can't even talk in this segment that we have.
I know we need a lot of time, but you mentioned very important parallel between aviation and leadership, such as preparation, discipline, situational awareness, emotional intelligence, teamwork. All of these are very critical. One thing I want to highlight, and I want to hear from you, when it comes to aviation, you mentioned the stake is high. You actually said that if you don't treat this bird, this plane, she's going to kill you. In leadership, sometimes leaders, they don't take care of the organization, the platform, the team that gave them that opportunity. It may not kill them right away, like in the case of the plane, but we have seen leaders who don't take care of the team, don't take care of the organization. Down the road, they're going to be killed or pushed out by the team. And this parallel is very important. I don't need to wait until I'm pushed out. I don't need to wait until I become irrelevant. I have to have this sense of awareness. Look, I have to take care of the bird. I have to take care of the plane. It's very, very important. I'm here not because of me. I'm here because of the team, the organization, and the greater good. And sometimes leaders in the workplace, they don't see that. They don't have that sense of urgency to believe that all of these parallels in aviation should be translated and implemented without delay. They should have this sense of, do you see that? I'm sure you and people who have been in aviation, that's easy for you to create that kind of context and to take the team, the organization seriously, develop all of those competencies, including the listening one. But we don't see that in corporations. What do you think is going on?
That's another beautiful question that you've put. You see, John Maxwell has written it in the best way in his book that's called The 5 Levels of Leadership. See, everybody, as you have said, to understand what is really leadership and leading people has nothing to do being a boss, has nothing to do being in a position. It has something to do when you turn around, there are people behind you. And these people are not fake. And how do you find that? Because John Maxwell says, when you get a leadership position, you just have a position. You don't have no rights to lead the people, nothing. It's just a position. And people that have led with position, as you have said, their life will be here and there. But at the end of the day, they will be out of there, or when they quit, when they stop, they have not left anything for whatever they have. And they've been this, Hitler guy that went out there and tried to execute everybody. No, look, when you're given a position, you've given the opportunity to take people, inspire, influence, and most of all, get their permission to lead them. Look, when you get the permission to lead people, it's so much different from ordering people what to do. How do you get their permission? Permission is very simple to get from people. Lead by example. We have right now 205 top-rated technicians. There's one thing that I've done when we've started this project that we've been in for the last 3 years, is that I spent time with them. The first year and something, I was there. They worked the hours, I worked the hours. And that is when you lead by example and you let them know that your position is only for the board meeting, or you answer for certain things that need, these guys will give you their permission. And when these guys give you their permission, Doc, it will be a different story. Your production goes through the roof. And I can give you a very simple example. On the project that we're doing right now, when we started, we were only given 90 days. Here we are 3 years later. And last year, 100% of our aircrafts, accomplishing rate was 100%. This is a contract that we took.
Wall glass.
Yes, they told us if you can surpass 94%, we're happy. We're at 94.6. No, we didn't do that. We hit it at 100%. 100%. Something that they just could not believe on a company they gave 90 days. And here it is, as I told you, it's 30. So when you do that, your people themselves will take it. Look, they say a rich company that doesn't have connection with its people is a poor company because its life is not there. Look at all these companies that are hitting it high. They always have their employees up front, everything that they do. So when that production goes up and you see it, your next bet is to run and create those people that will sustain that production level that you have created. Once you put your succession plan in there, and now for me, I'm not bragging about it. Please do not take it. I don't go like I used to. Like I've told you, I've been there for a year and almost 2-3 months, day in, day out, looking at that. This operation is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365, never stops. So for me to make sure that this goes in like a well-oiled machine, I've been there. I've done that. I've done so many things that they have seen and not. There's nothing that they can tell me that I don't know. And just like I told you, when we took this contract, I'm the first one that cleaned the hangar. And they couldn't believe it. This guy, what is he? He's a crazy guy. But guess what? Today, it was very easy for me to create, or the succession plan was so easy because they've already given you the permission. They've seen how the production went up. For me right now, I'm just waiting for that pinnacle time where we can scale up. And what's the pinnacle time? You don't think about what you have done. For you people, it's who you are. They know who you are. They know you are part of the growth, part of the up and down, part of everything. So for what you have said, what makes that big difference is that for you to understand that if you are someone that's there and call yourself a leader, not a manager, because I don't like managers. I love leaders. Why? Leaders are there to influence. Leaders are there to inspire. Leaders are there to do one and only one thing, to lead by example. Because when you lead, you're a leader. And acronym says the E stands for empathy. You have empathy. You have that, what most leaders don't have. They don't like to listen. You, with that A means you have that right attitude. That attitude that's always there to take them to that, what they say, altitude determines your altitude. So you're there to do that on a daily basis. And the D is you are determined. You are this determined, decided person that's going to make sure that your way of showing your leadership or creating that environment of leadership is by being a servant leader.
Powerful examples. I love the acronym, but I want to emphasize two powerful things that you shared in terms of why leaders are not taking their position seriously and enter into a sense of urgency. The first one you mentioned about was leading by example. I was impressed when you told me about how you lead by example, the story you just shared, which is going there to clean the hangar. A lot of people don't do that. They think that's for some people down the line, not for them. They need red carpets. They need doors open for them, and they want to command and tell people. And that's why they're not taking care of the bird. That's why they are killed, metaphorically. Mm-hmm. The second powerful thing you mentioned about the delegation. I have to be honest with you. I know a lot of leaders, they're really world class in terms of their mindset, their competencies. One area they struggle is to scale. There is no way you could be able to scale without knowing how to delegate. You told me exactly, initially to impart your knowledge, to set the tone, to create the culture, to lead by example, you may be there more than you should be. But after that, once you delegate, you let them get unleashed. Once you have people duplicate you, and once you have leaders who shoulder responsibilities, now you have free time to think bigger, the one you mentioned. We have to scale. We have to go to the next level. And I'm glad that you are that kind of leader who leads by example, plus somebody who raises other leaders. This transitions me to the organization you mentioned, JAG-AvDyne Aeroservices. I'm not sure whether I pronounce it right. JAG-AvDyne Aeroservices. I was impressed, and I met also your colleagues. The very, very impressive team. I met you in one of the networks, and I was impressed because the aviation, the engineering part, we don't have minorities. We don't have African Americans, in a lot of them in that industry, and it's a proud moment to see African Americans and Blacks to enter into that field. What's very, very personal to me, to you, and many Ethiopians is that organizations opened the door for a lot of great aviation engineers 200 something you told me, and 100% success rate. That happened because of the leadership, because of the platform, because of the opportunity you created for a lot of Ethiopian engineers who would have been working somewhere getting maybe 1/10 of what you're paying them without maybe 100% results. Would you please tell us what's the impetus that led you to target, empower, bring, and help the Ethiopian aviation engineers, giving them these great opportunities? Can you tell us also what they are feeling? Have you heard some testimonials from Ethiopian aviation engineers?
That's another good question. I'll tell you this. You said it. Aviation for us, it's foreign still. We're about 3 to 4%. Maybe I said 4%, and some people might correct me. The minority, what we call here in America, the African Americans, the Asians, and the Hispanic, the Native Americans, and you can call every one of them that you can call that they are minorities. Look, we're only 3, 4%. And you try to penetrate in this type of industry, it's going to be what they call, it'd be a clear glass, but when you try to hit and go in, that glass will hit you back. And as good old James, I love him, James Brown used to say, we're not knocking, we're tearing the door down. That's the only way we could make it. I'll tell you, we're the only African-American MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul company right now in America at the magnitude that we're working. There's one lady out in, she took the company from her husband. She's out in the West Coast. But at the magnitude that we're working right now, we're the only ones. And you can imagine when you're the only one, you're like that light up on a mountain, and everybody's trying to shoot you for every action. There's an equal opposite reaction, and they don't want you in that circle, and you have to fight it. But we had something that is amazing, and that is we had trained people that lived here in the DMV area that were trained by one of the best airline in the world, and that is and the number one airline in Africa, Ethiopian Airlines. And as the good old Bezos says that, look, find a problem and you find a solution, you got your business. And that's what we did. There was a scarcity of technicians. You can't find technicians anywhere right now. I mean, companies like American and United, they were paying 50 to 100,000 just in signing bonuses. Hey, I just said to myself, look, if there's 500,000 Ethiopians in the DMV area, there should be 400 or 500 technicians. And bingo, I was right. We found them, we put them together, we bid on a contract that everybody says you're not going to get it, and we did. It's with one of the number one airline in the world. Okay, now we're working with American Airlines. Look, the way what you said it is that for us to be in this playing field, we have to be 3 times better than the next, company that's trying to take our leg from under us every day, every day, every day. So to come to your point, Doctor, it's that our survival in this business has to be scaling ourselves on a daily basis. I love Grant Cardone where he said 10xing yourself, and that's what we're trying to do. We grew from that little group, and it was getting bigger and bigger, and here we are at 205 strong. But when you see the level of experience that we have, I mean, you go to any of these major airlines right now after Corona, if they have 5 to 6, 7 years of average experience, I'm happy for them. But for us, it comes close to 100 years because we have people with 20, 25, 30 years of experience. Thank God to an airline that made sure, trained them, disciplined them, gave them culture. And it's like you walking on the street and finding a diamond. That's what happened. And we put them together. And here we are, almost 3 years later, as I've told you. We're doing a great job, and hopefully we can scale this up and take it to another continent, which that's what we're doing right now, and we can talk about it later.
Yeah, definitely. The scaling part, I want to hear more about scaling, because when I study our entrepreneurs, the most dedicated, hardworking entrepreneurs, one of the areas where I see gap is scaling. And sometimes when I talk about scaling, the pushback comes, and people tell me that, I don't have time, I don't have, oh, it's too much to scale, it's hard and difficult. And my pushback, and I want to hear your perspective on this one. My pushback is, think about this. For you to survive, whether as a person, a team, or organization, or a country, by itself is hard. Survival itself is very, very hard. What people miss is that those individuals and teams and organizations that are scaling and succeeding, they may not be struggling like we struggle in survival mode. What I'm telling people is the amount of energy, time, effort that takes to survive may be too much compared to you investing that energy, time to thrive, to scale, to go to the next level. The only challenge I see, and I want to hear your take on this one, is the mindset part, to believe that we are capable. That's what I hear from you every time we talk. We are capable. We can do this. We have what it takes. If you have that mentality, scaling becomes very easy. The second part is the competencies, because leading oneself is easy. You can control yourself, plan yourself, schedule. Leading one team is easier. But the moment you want to duplicate that team, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, and then geographies, that's when your capabilities are challenged. But I don't think these are rocket science. And what I heard from you is you already scaled from 4, 5 engineers into 200. It's huge. It's like more than 100, 400 times than what you had. Tell us a little bit about what it takes to scale, maybe specifically to our community, or maybe specifically to immigrants. Is it that much difficult? What's keeping us from scaling? What are some of the things that we should do to scale?
Another beautiful question. Scaling. What is really scaling? When you talk about scaling beyond borders, it's, if you can take it in another way, doing partnership with American like we did, and other airlines, or there's one project that we did that I fulfilled my own father's, wish, and that is he asked me on his deathbed, can you make sure that Ethiopia has an aviation science aerospace department? I've worked on that thing for 14 years. 14 years it took, and finally I succeeded with a beautiful set of people at Jimma University, and we inaugurated last year the first aviation science aerospace department in Jimma, and I was so fortunate enough that they named it after my father. So you can scale up by, empowering other Ethiopian institutes or engineering firms, and you can keep mentoring, you can keep training, you can have all these career development things. But there is one thing that is missing in this bridge that I call the diaspora gap, is that I'm a diaspora. I've been in the great land of America for 45 years. And if the crab effect doesn't stop, diasporas will not get anywhere else. And when I say that, is that the crab effect, every one of you know that. You won't let anybody go out. Or, as John Maxwell says it, the law of the lid. The law of the lid is, if the leader or if the influencer is at level 3, everybody's at level 2. They will not go anywhere. So this leader or this influencer has to go to level 10 so everybody could come up to level 9. Our problem is we're so much into pointing fingers, doing all kinds of, negative and con things against people when they're working on something. But once you're successful, everybody wants to be part of you. And once you're successful, somebody wants to come and do that thing right next to you, like as if they think it's easy. There's a saying, as back home, it says you can see a drummer play, but once he gives you the stick, It's not easy. It's not easy. So people need to, in mind, to scale, we need to first work on the mind, not just on the mind. You and I had several discussions. I said to you, we have a DNA issue, a major DNA issue. What I'm telling you is, in order for us to scale, there's so many things that need to come together. I've said it in the Ethiopian, community environment. There's about 500,000 Ethiopians out here in the DMV area. There's not one restaurant that I see that has a franchise. Why? I don't know if they can't work together, if they can't multiply. But it goes back again to that thinking, to that frame of mind. So for us, what we did was, in order to scale, we want to scale in a way where we understand we want to go against the problem. What is the problem? There is going to be scarcity. You will not find in the next 10 years, I will not even go 15, aircraft engineers. Why? Because right now the average age is somewhere about 58. Do you think somebody wants to work for you after 65? So in the next 10 years, just not me, Boeing is saying that in the next 10 something years, you will need a close to 24 million people. And right now, combined, all the schools in America right now produce 25,000. So how are you going to scale up to get to there? So one of the things for scaling up we're doing is we're doing our best to open up a school of pilots and technicians here, and scale up the involvement of minorities, because we're not there with 2-3%. How are you going to fight this? The other thing also is we're going across continents and trying. I mean, America has enough. It has everything what it needs. But what about in Africa? What about in my own country? Like I told you, to scale up in aviation science and aerospace. We're doing all those type of expansion too. But again, it all boils down to three things. Like I told you, it's the mindset, it's the acceptance. The other thing is also finances. And the other thing is also having the infrastructure to build those scaling up that you're trying to do. And for us right now, Ethiopia looks great because Ethiopia has gone way up far and beyond when it comes to aviation. I'm not saying this because my father was there or I'm Ethiopian. No, we're way out there. We are second to us in aviation, even in Africa. Doesn't even come close. It's not even half of where we are. So we're going to use that momentum, and we've signed a couple of MOUs with Ethiopian Airlines and try to scale this up to the next level. As I've told you, one of the things also that we do is with local schools and airlines, we're trying to scale up and bring technology and all that to them. Like Juma University, we're going to be installing their first simulator for them in the next 2 months. So all these things, as you've said, goes into what's called a scaling up for us. Scaling up is trying to put our foot, trying to put our face, in the door and saying, hey, we're here. Look at us. And as I've told you, we have to be three times better than our competitors.
Amazing. About the scaling, I love the story of you creating an aviation department in Ethiopia. That's one of the ways to scale the aviation industry in Ethiopia. Yes, we have a great airlines, which is world class and impacting the aviation industry. Even during COVID, that's one of the very few airlines that survived that difficult time when many airlines folded their wings. But without having institutions like the one named after your dad, and also the two things you mentioned, without capital and without partnerships, these are the two areas maybe I need a little bit more from you in terms of capital. You're right. I may have the mindset. I may have some skill sets to collaborate and build coalitions, but if I don't have capital, I may not be able to scale. In the United States, compared to other countries, there are other countries, for example, Dubai and other countries that have really great capital. In the United States, capital is a little bit cheaper, but our community, I'm talking about relatively, it's not that cheap, but relatively, maybe you don't have even capital in other countries. If it is, the interest rate is high and you don't have capital. But in the United States, at least we have relatively low capital cost, but our community is not tapping into that. And when I have discussion with aspiring entrepreneurs, they tell me, I have $200,000 and I want to buy a business or I want to invest this. And I tell them, why don't you leverage it? You can use this one, add capital, and maybe you can mention about the bank you mentioned. I don't know whether this is something you want to talk about it, whether it's too early, I don't know. But I think we need capital and we need to leverage opportunities to have capital. And the second thing is partnership. When it comes to partnership, I 100% agree with you. We are great people. We have so many qualities, but when it comes to coming together to work for a greater good and the scale, we struggle. Partly there is a cultural element. There is partly also maybe upbringing. I don't know, maybe scarcity mentality. You go everywhere, you see talented people, you see a great organization. Why not we scale this? Why don't we support this rather than duplicating and killing it? Why don't we just collaborate to scale this one? Look at other communities, the Jewish community, the Syrian community, the Lebanese community, the Turkish community. They come together, they collaborate and create coalition and the scale. Give us a little bit more about capital in that area. There is a huge gap. How can we fill that gap? And also in terms of collaboration, what do you think is that? I mentioned a couple of them. Maybe I don't know how to address that. How can we become collaborative to scale?
That's a vast question that you asked me, but let's try to summarize it in a few numbers that I can put in, maybe 1 to 5. Look, the diaspora's role, especially, let's just say, you just mentioned Turkey, let's just stay within Africa, within us, is not just this, they're not just stakeholders here. There's a strategic force in shaping the continent's future. But they don't think like that, because when we come here, we come from only in one thing, and that is to make the mighty dollar. And you said that. Look, we have so many skills and knowledge to transfer, okay? With the skills and knowledge, I always say, they ask me now, I told you I've been working for the last 45 years, and they ask me, how did you get to where you are, Cap? And I go like, hey, I've been working for the last 45 years. It took 45 years to see what you see today. So what is that investment in capital? It's not just in money, my good friend. It's also all these different minds coming together and building that bridge, because that bridge that is connected by this African diaspora in the global markets and institutions and opportunities and serve under different cultures and economy, being ambassadors, helping to integrate this global economy. Leadership is needed. I tell you, that's what we lack. We can't even sit and talk for 2 minutes. We get on each other's neck. We can eat together, we can celebrate together, but we cannot talk to each other unless somebody gets on top of the other. And that is one of the things that you and I have learned by joining, me joining John Maxwell and furthering and going in depth on what a leadership is. But again, entrepreneurship and innovation of getting to what you say, scaling up, is that there's so many things that you can scale up. Fintech is something that I'm in right now, and you talked about it. I can talk about it. Yes, money transfers back home. It's people are still in a grocery bag. They're exchanging money from one cross border to no. We can do so many things from here. This diaspora that's here can create the strongest bank right here in DMV. There's about 1.5 to 2 million diasporas. But how about the coming together? Ford said that the number one thing before you scale up to become who you want to become is the coming together. That's where we're missing, on the coming together. Why? Because this external brain trust that we have, this reservoir, this talent, this capital, this vision that we have as diaspora is fragmented. It needs to be mobilized with what? With intention. It has to be that catalyst for transformation, not just for economic terms, my good friend, but in shaping a new narrative for Africa to get to that excellence level of, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this. Look, again, the coming together is the most important, fundamental, systemic problem that we have to solve first. The rest will come. Let me tell you this. Do you think in this country we have the nothings of diaspora? No. The cream of the cream come here. And then what they do, they give us a paycheck. With that paycheck, they will own us. And with that paycheck, we'll buy houses and we'll be tied to their bill and we'll never go back home. We'll be in this, what they call the American life. No. My good friend, if we can scale this thing up, we need to scale up first thinkings. We need to scale up first coming together. We need to scale up this diaspora that I told you, talent, whether you call it brain trust, capital. It's just frying itself. And we don't even want to go and invest or go into that high. Look, I am in a level where most diasporas will look at our business and say, how did you get there? Because I said to myself, you can. What stops you from getting there? What stops you from to get into the zone where you only need 2 to 3% representation? Like I told you, my good old James Brown, I not knock the door, I slam the door down and I get in and I say, I'm entitled to do this. Today we're operating in the most secured airport, the Washington National Airport. And a good friend of mine from Ethiopia came and asked, how did you manage to do that? I said, nothing else. I just followed the law and I just followed the opportunity. I scaled to where I put people together, gave them one direction, why we need to do what we need to do, and we made it happen. So,
by the way, one thing I want to say is, because some people, they may not see from this angle, you coming to the United States, you're not just taking. You're now giving, because you created job opportunities. Not only that, you are adding value to the GDP of the United States. And therefore, when we shrink ourselves and always be consumers, not only we are hurting ourselves, our community, we're also hurting the hosting country. Mm-hmm. We should be able to go beyond just consuming. We should be adding values. When we do that, our influence also increases. Think about our community. In terms of voting bloc, we have maybe 500,000 Ethiopian in the diaspora. Yes, we have a
DMV.
DMV area, but think about our influence. Yeah, an elected official may come and pitch and they get elected. Do they come back again to keep their promise? I don't think so. Part of the reason could be because we don't have enough influence that goes beyond just the vote. If we create jobs like you're creating, if we add value to the system, what happens is that now we have voice. With that voice, we can also empower our community and we have influence in the policy. We have influence in what's happening in our community. We don't have that compared to our numbers. If our numbers were like $100,000 or maybe 50,000, fine. We are having this 1.something million Ethiopians in the diaspora. Part of the reason is because we're not scaling, because we're not producing, because we're not adding value. That is limiting our influence. Before we finish, I know we're running out of time. What's your vision going forward? Do you have any advice to our community? What should we do to leverage our number and also to leverage our talent, our dedication, our discipline to be productive and influential in the United States?
That is one thing that I've left. I mean, I told you when we met and when we talked about doing this podcast. I'm 64 years old, my friend, and I think about it so hard. And if I have that thing in front of me, I'll share it with you. But remember, I shared this with you. A School of Hard Knocks, a guy that shared with me this because he took out a roll of papers, and then this paper was marked from 1 all the way to 100. 1 all the way to 100. It's a roll of paper. He rolled it out and showed it to me like this. And he said, let me ask you this, okay? And I'm listening to this guy. He said to him, look, I'm 64 years old. You see this? This is what the best advice I can give you today on how you can do what you do, okay? If I am 64, and he said, can you tell me the life expectancy of a man? Okay, it's 75. What's the life expectancy of a woman? Oh, they're on top of us, so they're 82 or 84. So he said, let's go with the 75. So you said you're 64? Yeah, he said, he came and he said, I'll go right here at 64 and I will cut this off. This is memory for you, right? You've lived this life, you've had the best, and now it's gone, okay? And you told me that the life expectancy is 75. It's 75. And if you have been given, the glory or the allowance from God, you will live that 75, all the way to 100. But for now, you've told me the average is 75. So he went and cut it right here. And he said, this is what you have left. Put your life on steroids, man. Put your priorities in line. For me, I'm asking you, I can tell you so many things. I can see Africa rising, the demographics that it has, the digital leap frogging that it can do, the infrastructure investment that can go in there, and the diaspora's engagement. But still, challenges are there. Governance instability, there's education skill gap, there is industrial pace that Africa has not done with everything. And you take the snapshot. Look, at one time, I heard something that really shook my core is 40 years ago, China, you know where it was. Korea, you know where it was. Singapore, you know where it was. Germany, after World War II, and Japan. Today, they are giving. They are giving. They are no more receiving. They don't beg. They're not an assistant. Here it is, Africa. 60 years later, we're still begging. So for this little life that I have left, I'm 64 years old, like I told you, what's 11 years? Nothing. What I'm trying to do is what you've asked me, what do you try? I'm trying to get as much, ink into that ocean that is so huge. Whatever contribution that I'm going to make, it's going to be a little splash. But you and I can keep making this circle bigger and getting more influential people so that this could sustain itself. You see, China was running with all its greatness, and today they say China at 8% is in recession, but they're celebrating Africa for its 6% growth. Come on, my friend. What's 6%? What is a continent with 1 billion people? That's what China was 40 years ago, 1 billion. Today it's at 1.7, I don't know, 1.5. But listen, what you just told me, we have to scale the only one way, through awareness, through having these. Look, the time has passed where we could fight. Now it's an AI war, man. Drones and this and that. I don't want to go into politics. You and I are not politics. But look, no more you can fight that war that you can go out and go in the forest and try to be this freedom fight. No. Let's freedom fight here. Let's try to fight that fight and expand these type of brainstorming. I really appreciate you. I cannot say anything other than thank you again for enriching this conversation and for the opportunity that you gave me to share my journey, what you call it, from the cockpit to C-suite. But I'll tell you, man, I've come to realize, I'm just telling you this, that leadership is not just a title position. It's all about service, vision, and legacy. And I'm so happy that you allowed me today to share it with your audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You demonstrate, you embody leadership by serving, by setting example, and also working on your legacy, which is very important. How can people find you? If people resonate with your vision, if they want to support you, partner, and work with you, how can they find you? Or where can they find you?
Thank you very much. As I've told you, I showed you that little paper. My time is very limited. I'm running on that 11th hour. So I have a Makonnen A at avidyne.com email address, any ideas or innovation, anything that has to do with fintech or anything that has to do with aviation, banking, as you've said, expanding leadership, and also going back to philanthropy. I'm very much big in having wells dug in our side of the world, especially in Ethiopia. I've participated in 3 well diggings. So, and also a wonderful organization that I've joined recently called the Diaspora Foundation that does work with kids with Down syndrome. So there's a lot of things I have involved myself, as I've mentioned it to you, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for me right now is, even though I'm living my life on steroids, that my time is important. So as long as you can make that contact on the email that I just gave you, MakonnenA at avidyne.com. If I don't contact you right away, which I usually do, I apologize, but sometimes, as you say, priorities. But again, thank you, doctor. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much, Captain Abiy, for your time, your story, and the insights and the passion that you have, the legacy that you are building with sense of urgency. We need more people like you. And we're going to share the email of Captain Abiy so that you can reach out to him and support him in these different initiatives that he have. I want to appreciate everyone who watched live, and also those of you going to watch this in replay. Please share your thoughts and also like, comment, send this video to the people who may benefit from it. Until I see you with another conversation, have a great day. Thank you for watching.